Yeah, to start it, to talk about the lawsuit with NAR, how many of you think the news, if you were to go turn on the news right now, focuses on everything good and positive that's happening in the world?
It never does.
Never. Yeah. So here's my thing that I want everyone to take with a grain of salt. Any chance for an opportunity to talk about that makes something so doom and gloom, it's going to happen because the reps, and I'm not talking about anyone because I know I talked with Nick and Mary recently about this, but the reps that I'm talking to at these banks, they're all kind of freaking out. I have quite a few friends that are loan officers, not just Dylan Hykins, for those of you who know him, but other ones at other companies. And they are calling me saying, how are we ever going to do a loan where a borrower is going to have to pay the real estate commission? Um, and they said, this is about to be a huge precedent, blah, 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 blah. Here's a couple things. First of all, I have no idea what other state laws work as far as their contracts. I don't know what other states' contracts even look like. And I don't know how other states really operate as far as, what disclosures they have and different things like that. Our state is very crystal clear on what type of contract our sellers are signing. It's an exclusive right to sell where I negotiate the total commission and I am disclosing to the seller what it if someone else is the procuring cause for the buyer and they're a realtor, what I'm willing to pay them. Because I've seen it where listing agents posted a listing and they were only offering 1.5% or 2%, and the seller wasn't selling, and they had an agent from another company look into it, and they said, well, you're only offering 2% commission or 1.5%. And they said, no, when I signed the listing agreement, they disclosed to me that they're going to pay 2.5%. So that's news to me. And it became a whole issue. So in our state, I don't believe that people are unaware of the fact that what we're offering to pay another brokerage. And it's not that I'm negotiating my commission and the other commission. I'm negotiating the total commission when we sit down and we meet. Now, once again, I don't know what these other states say or don't say, and they're trying to say that that it makes it unfair for the sellers to pay all of the, to make it typical or not negotiable. But here's the truth of it. In 2021, the market went crazy and people were offering crazy things to get houses. And to be honest, in order to be more competitive, people were writing a lot of offers where the buyer was paying for their agent's commission, because that's what happens in a competitive market. If it's not a competitive market, and this is what the news is not going to talk about, if I can't sell my house, you think I'm going to tell every buyer that they need to pay all of the real estate fees? It's like, it's negotiable that we could split escrow fees. It's also negotiable that I could make the buyer pay all of the escrow fees. I could technically make the buyer pay my realtor's commission, in a very competitive environment. But if there's no other offers, if I cannot sell my house, is that the best course of action to take? To say, oh, because of this precedent that came out, I now want a buyer to add another 2% to their closing costs when interest rates are up in the high 7s to 8s. No. And I think that's the conversation that's going to end up happening. So what's going to come of this? I think you're going to get some sellers who are going to be aware of it and they might bring it up. And so it is your job as a professional to educate them on why that might be a bad idea. You cannot say it's typical, but you can say, just think about it this way. If we get multiple offers, why don't we just get them to increase their purchase price? Or why don't we just counter all of the offers and say who's willing to pay their own agent's commission, right? That is a better option than to come and say, right off the get-go, hey, you need to pay 2 to 2.5 to 3% commission to your agent, right? There's a company, if any of you have ever submitted an offer with, I think it's like USA bids or something like that. Basically, you bid and they incorporate the buyer's commission into the purchase agreement, into the purchase price. And it's like, well, but that's already taken into consideration. When I meet with a seller, I tell them how much they're going to net. And if they're not okay with that, then we don't list the house for that, or I can adjust my commission. So at the end of the day, I don't really give a crap if it's a precedent or not. It's not logical, and it's not practical in any way. The amazing thing about buying and owning a house is that not only do you get to pay down your loan, right? As you make payments, you're paying down the loan balance. So you're adding equity to your property, but there's also appreciation. So in these other states, I don't really care. It's hard to understand their market because they don't really have the job market that we have. And so their housing market fluctuates like you wouldn't believe. And it usually like they don't have 5%, 5.7% appreciation. In our state, I believe we have it's either 9% or a little above 8. But at the end of the day, it's either, yeah. But when you factor in inflation, they say that our realized appreciation is around 5.7%. That's more than most states. So we have to keep that in mind that, not only do you have just natural appreciation from keeping your property, but also the fact that you're paying down your mortgage. So when I get a buyer coming in, how demanding is that to say, oh, I want you to pay for that? I mean, I'm paying the real estate commission just off of appreciation, right? In 1 year, I can pay for all of the commissions, theoretically, right? Depending on how the market's doing. So I kept some more notes because I wanted to organize all of my thoughts on this. Who's going to win this lawsuit? No clue. I don't think the news has any idea, and everyone is going to take the approach of doom and gloom and try to say who has who's right or wrong. Once again, this has to do with those state specific contracts and laws, because California Association of Realtors puts together our contracts. In other states, their Association of Realtors puts together their contracts with the help of NAR. Now, apparently there are brokerages that were pulled into this. You don't know, like maybe that they were all actually colluding together and talking about making it so that they force their agents to pick a certain commission. Like we have no minimum on what you choose to list, take as a listing commission. I don't really care if you decide to take it at 1%. Other brokerages do. And I think that might be where they could have an issue. But that has nothing to do with what we're all worried about, right? Okay, the problem might also arise that sellers think that they can ask the borrower to pay the commission. It's just going to cause unease. So with a lot of your clients, I think there's a couple things. I think one, most of our buyers nowadays, even though we're in the information age, they just don't know much about anything. And they rely heavily on us to educate them. You are going to get some clients who are going to leave their agent and come to you and say that their agent is requiring that they sign some type of buyer broker agreement where they're committed to pay a commission to their agent. I think you're going to see a lot of buyers leave their agents for that. We are not going to require that they sign a buyer. You can do that if you want. I just don't think it's the best idea in our market, just because if the common comment that I get from buyers is, well, if things don't work out between you and I and we get in disagreements, I don't want to be locked into a contract with you, right? So that's one thing to consider, is that you're going to have people that say that, and I would just take a position of education, right? Hey, listen, if a seller's asking for you to pay my commission, it's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, it's negotiable. We can negotiate it just like we can negotiate them paying all the closing costs, right? I had one recently with an agent from another company where I'm doing the loan for them, and he said, well, they won't give that big of a credit to cover her closing costs. And I said, well, then have them pay all of the closing costs in the contract. See if the agent even notices. Nope, they accepted it. And I'm like, okay, what the heck? He put seller pays for everything, and they agreed to it. So there's ways that we have to sell ourselves and be really good about selling ourselves, not just by saying what we're going to do, but by telling them exactly what we're going to do. So I don't meet with a client, and to the article Mary sent, to that point of the article, this is going to weed out if it really does become a precedent or whatever, it's going to weed out a lot of amateur realtors. I think the market changing has already done that. And people that I know who close a ton of deals and actually make a good living, they also take cuts in their commission. So there's no real standard. I know that most of them, they do a ton of listings because they take a cut sometimes if needed. I have given credits from my own commission to help with closing costs if needed. So that's why I don't think this is really that big of an issue. I think it's always going to be an issue of what can I reasonably sell my house for in order to make my necessary move? Like, how do I hit my goal while also hitting someone else's goal, right? If someone else wants to buy my house, but my goal has to be selling it for way over market value, then I need to not sell my house, right? But if market value, like we've had some in the brokerage where it's, hey, the seller is sticking to their price because they just cannot net any less. Otherwise, they can't buy their next house. My buyer cannot go quite up to that price. So I give $1,000 credit to them from my commission to buy down their rate so they can qualify for it, right? I think that is where we have to be educational with our clients. I can't just say, oh, I'm full-time in the industry. I can show you houses wherever you want. Just text me whenever you want to go see a house. Boo, you're going to fail. You're going to have a really hard time keeping the higher end clients. I think there's some people that are going to really like you because you're nice. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to leave you because you're not proving value quickly. And so, especially if you're working with leads, right? When you get referrals, they're just naturally going to trust you as an expert, which is great. We should all be working referrals as much as possible. We have I think our brokerage has 8 or 9 deals in a contract right now. I think with the exception of one, all of them are organic. People are making 90% of the commission. And so it's really nice being able to do the commission demand and see everyone making over $10,000. Because I know a lot of agents on other companies who only work leads and they've never seen a $10,000 commission check. So when it comes to leads, though, we need to be very intentional about how we win them over and win their trust. I say things right away like, hey, do you see all these issues? This is what dry rot looks like. I have seen it in a home inspection. Keep in mind that you can always fix this later. It's not a huge issue right now. It could be, and so we'll talk with the inspector about it. But usually when we go to submit an offer, let's just make sure we keep in mind that this could be $5,000, it could be $10,000, but we're planning on getting it back as a credit or a price reduction. And we'll talk with the loan officer to see what's better. Now, one of the things that came up in the article Mary sent me was that people are saying that when you present commissions as a percentage, which I find this so stupid because so many companies offer commission as a percentage. So whatever. But when you offer commission as a percentage, I am more enticed to get you to increase your offer price rather than offering less than the list price. I think that's a load of BS because think if I'm making 2.5% for every 1,000 that we increase the purchase price, I make $25. So if we offer 10,000 more than the list price, I make a whopping $250. If someone brings that up to you, I would literally just be like, I'll just credit you the difference. If they're telling me that they have offers 20,000 over the list price, and you're saying that you think that I'm lying just so I make more commission, well, that's a difference of $500. I'll just give that to you if you just agree to meet the highest and best offer, because I'm trying to help you get your goal of winning the house, right? Does that make sense to everyone as far as the increase? It's like in theory, I guess it sounds bad that, hey, I'm taking advantage of you, but to really if I tell you to increase the purchase price by $5,000, I'm really not getting paid that much more to make a difference, in my opinion. Okay, I do know after 2020 and 2021, so pretty much 2022 and this whole last year, every buyer I've had that has bought before have all said the same thing. It's funny because told all of them the same thing. I'm like, have you all talked to each other? I keep hearing this. But people who have bought before are all saying this. They said sellers are being way too demanding right now. And we are getting into a market where buyers have had enough. And when I'm being told my interest rate is 7.5%, 7%, when 2 years ago they were in the low twos, it's hard to justify that. And people are asking for way too much stuff and they're not caring for their house. So we're getting a lot of homeowners that haven't updated their house. They haven't renovated their house. They haven't taken care of their house, but they've had good appreciation. And I think if I haven't updated my house, renovated it, I have a ton of issues that, deferred maintenance has caused wear and tear on my house. How am I going to then go and ask for someone to pay their own realtor commission, right? I think that we're going to get a lot of buyers who just get too frustrated with that. There could be lawsuits that come up because, realtors start to say weird things, but that has always been the case, and those people will get caught. Things like, oh, you have to pay my commission. And I think we're going to start to see some realtors take advantage of this and try to get commission on both ends, where they get their buyer to pay for it and don't disclose that the seller is also paying them a commission. Just a thought that came into my mind. But let me go down my list. Yeah, like I said, I've always seen, this whole thing about, who pays what commission. I've always seen, I think that a good point is that there's a chance that real estate commissions are going to be drastically cut down. Maybe. I just know people who have won over listings at 6% because someone had a ton of appreciation and just didn't care. And they sold their value to that person, right? I think you're right. Okay, so one of the loan officers I know, the vice president of his company told him that loan officers their commissions in the next year or two are going to get cut down to a quarter of what they were making before. And I said, why? What would dictate that? And he said, well, my vice president said with AI capabilities nowadays, the AI can audit the whole file, come up with conditions and ask for certain documents. And so it doesn't even need me to do that. And I said, so you're telling me that your everyday job is just to sit in a file and ask for documents? That's the only value you give as a loan officer? He said, no. I'm like, yeah, right. Didn't you just sit down for an hour and a half with my borrower, the lead I just sent you, and you went through all the different loan options. You educated them on every different option that was available. You talked about, what if we could get a credit? What's the best way to use that credit? What if we did a price reduction? And you got him a 15-year mortgage because that's what he wanted based on his goals and blah, 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 blah. How is AI going to do that, right? I just strongly disagree with that. And I think we need to all remember what value we bring to the table, and stop paying so much attention to the fact that real estate commissions might get cut. I think they would get cut if we start to get into an environment where people are underwater on their house, or they owe too much. They've done too many other loans to renovate things and whatever, and they have to sell. Then you're going to be put in a position where it's, hey, if you have to sell and you can't pay 5% commission, then I'll take a flat fee and pay the other side 2% if that nets you enough that you can sell, right? That would be the only reason why I think we'd really see price cuts and commissions. Yeah. If commissions get brought up because someone has read an article, it's a time for you to justify and just talk with your client about it. So if you're meeting with a seller and they're bringing it up, once again, I would just educate them as to why that may not be the best idea. It is obviously an option for them, but I can obviously say no as well. Because I don't want to list a house where you're just going to get frustrated with me. You can definitely go and list with someone else, and you have the option to do that and use them because they're willing to, say that you have to pay. It's up to you guys, right? When you take listings, I just think that it's going to be a tough conversation. And if someone's that adamant, I'm going to say, okay, then I want you to pay for the pictures in the video. And which I'll reimburse you when we sell the house. However, if we don't get any offers within the first month, we need to, instead of dropping the price, we're going to start offering commission to the buyer in the form of 2.5%. And you can put that into the contract, into the listing agreement in other terms. If you guys have questions about that, feel free to ask me. If you have borrowers that bring this up, just talk to them about it. It's not a precedent yet, and I think it's going to be another year before they settle this. I mean, maybe not, but yeah. I will be. Oh yes, the last thing about this is I will be making a disclosure about it. I saw one from another company that was really odd, but basically the disclosure you have to provide on your listings that paying the buyer broker is not necessary. It's not typical. Everything is negotiable, but it is recommended by us in order to sell their house. So I have an attorney who's going to put it together for us, but that will be required with all of your listings. Does anyone have any questions about this subject?
I don't have any questions, but I was going to add something.
Yeah.
So like when I read the article, I guess the thing that stood out to me more than anything is like not necessarily doom and gloom, but it's important not to bury your head in the sand and think that your industry is indestructible and not capable of changing, because industries across the board with AI or technology or, people just being fed up with paying too much, like it's entirely possible that it could change. And it's just, I think, a matter of, just being aware that it is possible. And then like how, like you say, how are you going to meet the challenge? Like you have to, you're still going to be providing value. You still have to know how to have that conversation. And I think more than anybody, more than the realtors reading it, thinking doom and gloom, it's like the uneducated buyers who are reading that.
It's actually the loan officers that I've been experiencing that they are so doom and gloom about it. Like a lot of these banks and lenders, the banks right now are freaking out because they've seen the majority of borrowers come in and their financial situation. And typically, if you were to add another 2% in closing costs, it's not going to work. It's not that they're going to have a hard time getting the loan done. So I've had a lot of loan officers and bank reps just like freaking out about this. That's the article wasn't actually doom and gloom. I did like the article you sent me. And it is true that I think any market could change. It's interesting, and I was talking with someone else, I think maybe Adrian and Olga, about this, that their projections this last year on the market with interest rates increasing was they thought new mortgage applications and home prices and home sales were going to dramatically drop. And they dropped, but they didn't dramatically drop like they anticipated. And I believe it's because we are in the information age, right? We're in an age where, unlike back in the day when I had to go to a realtor and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a house. Here's what I'm looking for. Can you just show me houses? And that I was dependent on the realtor giving me information. Now I can go online so I can at least stay educated. And I think as an industry, our industry as a whole, loan officers, title reps, realtors, everyone is trying to do as much as they can to educate their client. Every marketing material that's sent to me from these banks has to do with education, right? It's, hey, you have a low FICO score, but you make a good amount of money. Here's a loan program for you. You have a great credit score and a huge down payment, but you don't make that much. Okay, here's a different loan program for you. Here's if you're not okay with the monthly payment, but you can qualify. What if we do a 2-1 buy down? And everyone started talking about 2-1 buy downs. Everyone's even putting it in their listings. If you have listings that are sitting, I would do one small price drop and put on there that you're offering a credit towards a 2-1 buy down, because you force buyers agents to educate them, because the buyer is going to read it in the remarks and they're going to talk to their agent and say, what is a 2-1 buy down? Because that's what happened to me. And I said, oh, this is a 2-1 buy down. I'm surprised your lender didn't educate you about that as an option. And it got them excited because they said, wait, so I can get a monthly payment of that? Oh, I'll take that. And so I just think that our ability to educate our clients and educate people out there, it is huge right now. And that's why our market is very different. And they definitely thought we were going to see a big crash, and we didn't. I do think as you're seeing more houses that need a ton of work come on the market and need a lot of updating and renovations, those are not going to sell because it's hard for people to justify spending the money to renovate, spending the money on repairs, and all of the money necessary to buy the property. So are rates currently going down? Kind of, not really. They are a little bit, but rates fluctuate. We had a huge increase. Like I even had a huge increase in last month in mortgage applications, which was crazy to me. And they all said, oh, we heard it was the biggest drop since blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess, but not really. Just don't forget that stuff like that you hear on the news, it is good to reconnect with your client so that they don't just go and talk to some random person and now they're working with another realtor first. Like I would go back and reconnect with all of your past clients who had talked to a lender and then disappeared, and just maybe use that as a talking point and say, hey, the news is talking about all the big drops in mortgage rates. Have you had a chance to reconnect with your loan officer to see where rates are at for you and your qualification? Do I think they really dropped that much? No, but it's a good time to talk because we can always talk about other options with them, right? If I got someone who talked to me and the interest rate is at the same rate that I originally talked to them, like Serena and I were working with B and I forgot her name. If they called me, I bet you rates are exactly where they were when they said rates are too high. But I would then talk to them about, hey, how about a 2-1 buy down? Because you're going to get your monthly payment where you want. Or how about we permanently buy down your rate? Or how about we go with this lender who offers considerably lower rates? There's just different things we can do. So did anyone else have any questions or comments about that? No. Okay, so a couple small things. Do remember that a buyer, you guys are required to do, for our brokerage, a buyer's avid whenever you're representing a buyer. So the agent visual inspection disclosure, please do those promptly. I just like to do them whenever we're doing the inspections. The way that you need to do them, and I will start reviewing everyone's avids, is and really it's to protect you. You don't want to walk into a room and say no comment if you don't see anything, because if you walk in the room and you see 3 different marks on the wall, it's too easy to point back to you and say that you didn't take it seriously when there was like, a small hole here, a scratch on the wall here, a stain on that wall there, and you put no remark. I would just really look at something or just put the words mark on wall. You really should not be descriptive about any of the comments. And this is not a debate. Like if there's a thumbtack hole in the wall, it's hole in the wall. Because if you put small hole in the wall, that is your opinion and someone else's opinion could be different and it becomes an issue later. So if there's clearly a water stain on the ceiling, you don't say water stain, you say discoloration on ceiling or mark on ceiling. And then I would walk through and talk about it with your client. Just say, listen, for legal reasons, I really just cannot specify that that's a big hole. But when you see it that's why when I get to a home inspection, I do my agent visual inspection so that when my buyer comes, I walk through it with them and say, I put crack on the ceiling, but I'm talking about that right there. And I just point to it and they go, oh, okay. I'm like, I can't say large crack. I can't say small crack. I can say crack. If it's like a scuff mark, you never want to put usual wear and tear, because what is usual, right? You want to avoid, I hate this word, ambiguous language. I think that's the right, how you say it. Anyway, you want to avoid something that can be misconstrued, right? I don't want to say usual wear and tear when really their dog has been scratching at it, because that could come back on me, right? I just want to say wear and tear on cabinets or marks on cabinets, marks, scratches. Like I've even put mark, comma, scratch, comma, crack on cabinets. And that's it. You don't have to specify which cabinet, just put cabinets. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone's taught different things in other brokerages. Don't worry about what another agent puts on their disclosure. Just worry about your own, right? At the very end, I always like to add, so it says other observed or known facts, just put see seller disclosures and inspection reports, because right there, yes, I've seen all this stuff, but I'm still recommending on the same disclosure that you go back to those inspection reports, because I know that information as well. Does that make sense to everyone? I've noticed a lot of times.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I said yes, it makes sense. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've noticed sometimes where we see another company and what they comment, and then we try to go off of them. I wouldn't really do that. I've seen listing agents put mark on wall for every single category. Just that's it, mark on wall, every single category. Okay, if you get into a lawsuit and there was a stain, 1 second, and there was a stain on the ceiling that everyone missed. This is where this comes up. There's a stain on the ceiling, and the home inspector missed it. Your client, everyone missed it except for you. You saw it but you put mark on wall in every single room of the house. Your client calls you and says, "Man, our roof was leaking and it busted through, and you're through our bedroom." And you say, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing that stain on the wall." Boom, you're taken to court because you saw it and you should have disclosed it, but you just put mark on wall in every room. So you don't want to be too descriptive, but you also don't want to be too lazy about it, if that makes sense. Olga.
Yes, so if a fence or part of a fence, it's like leaning, so it's almost like disconnected from another part, but it's not completely down. How would you say that?
I would just say, just say back fence is leaning.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Just be as general, but not too descriptive where it's up to someone's opinion. Like if I say it's cold outside, my opinion of cold is very different than Mary's opinion of cold, right? Mary gets cold very easily. Me not as much, maybe. So, right, that's where you just want to avoid that kind of language, if that makes sense to everyone. I know that by law it's not required for the buyer's agent to do it, but let's just protect ourselves, which is why we require it. In paperless pipeline, so for those of you, and I know some people are going to be watching this recording who use other TCs than some of us. Right now we have Jen Lee. A lot of you used her as your TC, but she is also our auditor now of files. So we're working with paperless pipeline. It's been a little bit difficult, but it's pretty nice. So it's going to monitor all of your sales volume by unit and also total commission for the year. It will help me put together your 1099s. Some of you, I have to resend you your W-9 because either I didn't have it on file when you first signed on to the brokerage, or you didn't put your social. I have to have that by law because I have to send you guys your 1099. The IRS is like really cracking down on that. We might be seeing, which I'm surprised the news hasn't even talked about this, if they're talking about the commission thing. Escrow companies might start to change because of the IRS laws. They might start to just send the brokerage one commission check, and then I have to then pay you guys out separately. But I think that might be coming down the pipeline, so just be aware of that. If you guys get right now, because right now builders are pretty much doing that. So if you guys get a house under contract with the builder, they're going to pay me, and then I will pay you. I will not pay you by check. We've been having some issues with checks, and it costs money, and it's free for me to transfer the money to you. So please get online banking and I can just transfer the money to you. It's safe and secure because it's you and me, not some random third-party person that you're talking to, if that makes sense. But I have a feeling that might be coming. So for those of you though who use other transaction coordinators, as you create a transaction and they can always call me about it. Let me share my screen real quick. As they come into paperless pipeline, please do not have them create a practice transaction, because what's nice with paperless pipeline, why we don't use SkySlope anymore, SkySlope charges per user. And if you guys aren't closing any deals, we're literally just losing money. Paperless pipeline is nice because, one, I think it's more user-friendly for me, for the admin side, but also they charge us based on each transaction that's uploaded. That's why please do not put in a practice one or put in a coming soon like this, but this was one that was taken off the market, so it's not really coming soon. It's just off for now. But what's going to happen is as you create it, so let's take this one, you want to make sure that your transaction coordinator is putting in information here. So if I go over here to one that's closing recently, the transaction coordinator in the commission summary, you can also do edit transaction and type it there. Put his transaction fee, his name, but please put it, and this will be a note. So when you log in, it'll be a note like right when you in your home page. You'll see what's new. Basically, there'll be an alert so your transaction coordinator can see it right away. I just need them to basically put it as if it's a mailing address. So 350 TC fee, and then put their first and last name and address so I can copy and paste it in the commission demand. Because then what I do is we hit commission demand. If you're giving a credit, please put that as well. So she's giving a credit to her borrower. And then basically we upload it. Our rules are, once you've removed all contingencies, then we upload that. So it just saves time and money. Really just saves time. I don't want to have to put together a commission demand for one that's about to cancel because of whatever. So once you've removed all contingencies, then, or if we're a couple days away from closing and maybe you still have one even after closing, which has happened, just let us know and we'll put together the commission demand and email it to you. But it keeps track too, which is nice, of all of your money to your cap. So for those of you who are getting, it'll show your progress to your cap. If you've closed deals before we did this, I have to go back and edit it a little bit. But yeah, and just a reminder, your cap resets on your anniversary month. So, and then next thing, we're going to be, so a couple things. I finally found a way that we'll be putting out kind of like a newsletter email to everyone. I know we use Discord, but there's a lot of people who I think are not very active on Discord or turn the notifications off, which is fine, right? I think a lot of us, especially a lot of you on right now, are very collaborative, but other people work too. So we're going to be sending out newsletter emails periodically. One of the things that I'm really working on sending out, and that I'm working with Lofty on, is there should be a way here soon that when you go into the marketing center, you can see branded content to post to your social media. So for those of you who are looking for things to post, you can basically go to Social Studios or the marketing center in Lofty, and you're going to have, Lofty has some stuff, but not really. It's not, their stuff isn't super good and they make you edit everything. We're going to have a lot of stuff. So, if we get closer to like Christmas and different holidays, you'll have 3 different options of a social media image as well as text that you can just automatically click. Oh, I like this one. I want to post it and schedule my post. Okay. they're suggesting that I post this for St. Patrick's Day. Here's my 3 options. I like this one. Let me copy and paste the text or rewrite my own text and schedule it as a post to all of my social media accounts. That is coming. I should be able to get it done in a couple weeks, but that'll be nice because a lot of you can just go on there and it's just really easy to constantly schedule posts. We're going to try in the next year or so creating a point system that rewards people who do this. One of the big banks that I like to use on the mortgage side, they have created this point system that I can use. Like if I want to order a closing gift for my client, I can earn points that pay for that closing gift. The closing gift is great because it helps me possibly get more clients, which helps the bank. But a lot of the points that I've got is simple stuff like attending a meeting or watching the recording of the meeting, posting to social media. It's all stuff we should be doing, but it's just nice to kind of gamify the things we should be doing, right? And then last 2 things, we will be creating email drip campaigns that you can subscribe all of your leads to. So whenever you put a lead into closed, and then they'll eventually move to past clients as well. If you're really good and diligent about putting some basic information in there, their close date and when they closed on the house and their address and their birthday, we will basically set up an email drip campaign for you that sends them text messages and emails wishing them happy birthday, text messages and emails wishing them, merry holidays, whatever holiday it is, but also reminder emails of their anniversary, congratulations, it's been 1 year since you purchased your house, I can't believe it. But it will also send them about once a quarter. There are companies that offer this as an extra purchase that you can pay for, but Lofty pretty much does it for us. We can send them quarterly basically market analysis so they can constantly keep basically up to date with what their home value is at. So it'll just be ways that you never lose a client again. So a lot of banks are having us do this on the mortgage side because, right, statistics say when people buy or sell that they always say they would use their realtor again and then they never do. It's simple stuff like this that once we set it, you can forget about it and focus on getting new business, but you can still stay in touch with your clients. So that'll be coming here soon. And then lastly, I'll be scheduling or reaching out on Discord to see what date works for everyone to do a business planning workshop. I'd like to get everyone involved. This usually is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I'd like to do it just right after the new year, where we really dive into, how to analyze your business from last year, which includes work habits, things you've done, setting goals. It's very useful. I remember the first time I did it, I made $55,000 1 year. It was like my first full year as a realtor. Then I did that business, similar-ish business planning session. And the next year I made just under 200,000. And I really believe that a lot of that came from a lot of the stuff that I sat down and looked at and thought about and talked about with someone else. And so I think every year this is one of my favorite meetings and workshops we'll do as a brokerage. So I'll be putting a couple date options out on the calendar. And so just let me know if you can make it or not for each date. Otherwise, that is it. Market's starting to pick up. We're getting a lot of new pending transactions. So now is a great time to be reaching out to people. Any questions? Our next community event will probably be the Easter egg hunt. Possibly another like rental property owner seminar, maybe early February. But yeah. Otherwise, that is it. Anyone have any questions or comments or